A mass of black and white quills, bristling and rattling in the dark. Few predators would dare test such an animal, and those that do often leave with painful reminders lodged in their skin. This is the image most people have of a porcupine, a slow but well-armed tank, seemingly untouchable behind its armor of spines. Yet the story of porcupines is more complex than it first appears. These quills are not thrown like darts, but are modified hairs evolved into some of the most effective defenses in the mammal world. And porcupines themselves are not a single, uniform group. Some are arboreal, some are burrowers, and their spines have taken on different shapes and roles depending on their lifestyle. The most iconic of all are the crested porcupines of the genus Hystrix, the largest porcupines in the world, and perhaps the ones that best embody the classic idea of what we expect a porcupine to look like. If you'd like to learn more, check out the document in the description with research papers and image credits. Porcupines are rodents. That might seem surprising at first glance, but over 40% of all mammals are rodents, making them a very large and diverse group. Rodents are defined by their teeth. Their large incisors never stop growing, meaning they are forced to constantly gnaw wood, bark, nuts, and other hardened materials to wear down their teeth. This constant growth is an amazing adaptation to prevent dental damage, but it is a double-edged sword. If they don't wear them down, then the incisors will get large enough to cause severe injury or starvation, essentially killing themselves. Rodents are grouped into three major clades. First are the squirrel-like rodents. This includes not only squirrels, but also chipmunks, marmots, mountain beavers, and dormice, along with their relatives. They are mostly agile tree or burrow-dwelling animals with strong hind legs and sharp claws. Next are the guinea pig-like rodents, including porcupines, mole rats, agoutis, and chinchillas. This is a varied group with many arboreal or burrowing species. Some are forest specialists, while others are adapted to high altitudes. The remaining clade contains the rat-like rodents, with beavers, jerboas, hamsters, voles, and mice and their relatives. Even this brief list gives you an idea of just how diverse rodents are. Just including beavers in the rat-like group feels odd. But for this overview, that is the group they are most closely related to. But we are not here to look at the beavers or rats today. So what about porcupines? The thing is, there are two lineages we call porcupines, and they are not particularly closely related. They are both in the same large clade at least, the guinea pig-like rodents. So let's have a closer look. This clade is called Hystricidae, and it starts with the comb rat and Laotian rock rat. Small, secretive rodents with unusual skeletal adaptations. The Old World porcupines in Hystricidae are next, the famous quill-bearing subjects of today. Then come the mole rats and cane rats, with burrowing lifestyles and, in some cases, highly social colonies. It is only now that we find the New World porcupines in Cavoidia, alongside packers, agoutis, and guinea pigs. The remainder of the guinea pig-like rodents are in the final lineage, with chinchillas, neotropical spiny rats, and degus, South American rodents ranging from tropical rainforests to the peaks of the Andes. Now we can see just how distantly related the two groups of porcupines are, and these differences are obvious when you see them. The American porcupines are often arboreal, smaller, and equipped with prehensile tails. The Old World porcupines have taken a very different path. Most are large, heavy-bodied animals that spend much of their lives on the ground. Although Old and New World porcupines share the same basic defense, they evolved it independently, a striking example of convergent evolution. The spines of New World species are finer and more flexible, with a smooth shaft tipped by microscopic backwards-facing barbs that makes them difficult to remove once embedded. By contrast, those of the Old World porcupines are typically longer, thicker, and lack true barbs. The quills of both are hollow to some extent, but in the Old World porcupines, the core is reinforced by internal keratin rods that stiffen the structure. Their arrangement also differs. In New World porcupines, the quills are interspersed among ordinary fur and bristles, while in Old World porcupines, they are often clustered in dense patches or form crests along the head and back. Both families arrived at the same solution from different directions, shaped by the pressures of predation. The family Hystricidae, the Old World porcupines, is an ancient and distinctive lineage within the rodent order. Today it contains three genera, Aethururus, Triches, and Hystrix. All are found across Africa and southern Asia, and all share the same basic defensive strategy. Spines formed from modified hairs used first for display and deterrence, with active attack being the final desperate measure. While they may look cumbersome, Old World porcupines are remarkably adaptable. Species occur from tropical rainforests to rocky deserts, and their burrows, foraging, and even quill displays reflect these environments. Some prefer damp, shaded gullies, while others thrive in open savannas or semi-arid scrub. Their wide distribution across 2 continents hints at how ancient and flexible this lineage has been throughout changing climates. Fossil evidence suggests that the family has ancient roots in Africa, with early Hystricids appearing at least 20 million years ago. As continental climates shifted, they radiated across Eurasia, diversifying into forest dwellers and open country specialists. The modern genera reflect this history. Light, agile species in humid forests, and heavy, quilled burrowers in drier habitats. The brush-tailed porcupines and Aethururus are the smallest members of the family. Their quills are shorter and finer than their larger relatives, and they are named for a long tuft of bristles at the end of their tail. These porcupines are more lightly built and are among the most social of the family, often foraging in small family groups. They inhabit dense forests, with one species in western Central Africa and the other in Southeast Asia. They feed on roots, fruits, and fallen nuts, and in many parts of their range, they are also a major source of bushmeat, which has led to local population declines despite their wide distribution. Their relative agility and social habits make them quite different from the heavier crested porcupines. Field studies have shown they can coordinate alarm calls and group retreats into shared dens, behavior rare among porcupines. This sociality may help them thrive in predator-rich tropical forests. The long-tailed porcupine, Triches fasciculata, is the only species in its genus. It is even more lightly armored than the brush-tailed porcupines. Found in the forests of Borneo and nearby islands, it is a slender, agile climber, and its tail, unusually long for an Old World porcupine, helps it balance among branches. Its quills are mostly restricted to the back and sides, offering less protection than those of its ground-dwelling relatives. Instead, it relies on agility and cover to avoid danger. From these smaller and more secretive species, the evolutionary line culminates in the massive Hystrix porcupines. Heavy-bodied, burrowing animals that represent the peak of the group's defensive evolution. These are the animals that likely most closely match our mental image of a porcupine, stocky, heavily built, and armed with an impressive array of quills. The quills themselves are fascinating structures made of keratin, the same material as hair, nails, and horns. This makes sense, as quills are modified hairs that have hardened into the structures we know today. They are hollow, filled with a spongy substance that makes them buoyant in water, giving them a built-in life jacket, allowing them to easily paddle across rivers and ponds with ease. Their quills have some flexibility, while still being sharp enough to pierce a predator's skin. Getting hit by a porcupine is often life-threatening for predators. The quills break off, becoming embedded in the target, and are difficult to extract. They can snap further or be accidentally pushed deeper. Even if they are removed, the wounds may become infected, as quills often carry bacteria which is forced into the injury. Quills are not only weapons, however, they are also a warning. Attacking is typically a last resort, since the porcupine risks being harmed in a confrontation. Some quills are modified into rattlers, producing a warning sound when shaken. Think of a rattlesnake's tail. It advertises danger and discourages attack. When threatened, a crested porcupine may stamp its feet, rattle its quills, before then charging backwards, teaching predators that these rodents are not worth the risk. Their main natural enemies are large carnivores such as leopards, lions, and hyenas. Yet even these hunters often hesitate to attack. In some regions, camera traps have recorded predators circling a porcupine repeatedly before abandoning the attempt, or regretting it later. In either case, it is a testament to the deterrent power of their quills. Though slow-moving, crested porcupines are far from helpless. They have an excellent sense of smell and hearing, allowing them to detect danger long before it approaches. When foraging, they keep their quills slightly raised, producing a faint rhythmic clatter with each step, a sound that warns others of their presence. Family members often communicate with low grunts or growls, and pairs have been observed grooming each other or touching noses, maintaining their bonds through quiet contact. Hystrix porcupines are primarily nocturnal, spending the day hidden in burrows or rock crevices, and emerging at night to forage. They are mostly monogamous, with pairs defending shared burrows, though occasionally small family groups can be observed. Their territories are often scent marked to ward off rivals. Their diet is largely herbivorous, consisting of roots, tubers, barks, and fruits. Occasionally, they gnaw on bones or other calcium-rich materials to maintain healthy teeth and acquire essential minerals. Burrowing and digging also gives them a subtle ecological role, aerating soil and helping with seed dispersal. Reproduction is relatively slow compared to many rodents. Gestation lasts around 100 to 110 days, producing typically 1 or 2 per litter. A baby porcupine has its own special name. They are known as porcupets. One crucial adaptation makes birth possible. While the porcupets are born fully furred, their quills are soft, more like thickened hair. These harden over the first few days, giving them their best defense almost from birth. The young remain with their parents for several months, learning how to forage and maintain the burrow. Even within this genus, there is a lot of variation between species in body size and in quill size and arrangement. There are a total of 8 species, further divided into subgenera. 2 of the subgenera are only found in Southeast Asia. The first includes the Malayan and Sunda porcupines, while the second has the thick-spined Philippine and Sumatran porcupines. While fascinating species in their own right, we are going to be focusing on the third subgenus, called Hystrix, or more technically, Hystrix sensu stricto. It includes the remaining 3 species. Sensu stricto is a Latin term that means in the strictest sense, a narrower definition of Hystrix than when the name is used for the entire genus. The species in this subgenus are notably larger than other porcupines. In fact, all 3 make it onto the list of the 10 largest rodents alive in the world today. The first of the 3 is the Indian crested porcupine, Hystrix indica. This is the most widespread member of the group, ranging across much of the Middle East and Southern Asia, from Turkey to India to Kyrgyzstan. While all Hystrix porcupines are ground dwellers, Indian crested porcupines are especially adapted to rocky and arid terrain. They can shelter in caves or rocky crevices, but are most known for the extensive underground burrows they can dig. These burrows can be multi-chambered and several meters long, often maintained for years and reused by successive generations. They provide protection from predators and give refuge from extreme daytime heat. Their claws and powerful forelimbs are well suited to excavating in stony ground, and their dark, coarse quills provide camouflage among shadows and scrub. These porcupines are largely solitary outside of the breeding season, but neighbouring individuals may tolerate each other in overlapping territories. They follow habitual paths to feeding grounds, leaving well-worn trails marked with scat and scent posts. In areas with few predators, they can sometimes be seen foraging boldly along roadsides or near villages. While they are widespread, they have several interesting limitations that prevent them from spreading further. They require substrate suitable for digging their burrows, but also need enough time to forage. Being nocturnal, Indian crested porcupines rely on long nights for safe foraging, at least 7 hours. In higher latitudes, the short summer nights restrict their activity window, naturally limiting how far north they can thrive. Despite being the largest rodent in their range, sometimes exceeding 18 kilograms, they have adapted remarkably well to human-altered environments. They can be found near villages and agricultural fields, where they sometimes raid crops like wheat, groundnuts, and melons, making them both familiar and occasionally troublesome neighbours. Farmers often control porcupines using traps, fumigation, or baited poisons, which can reduce local populations. Because porcupines reproduce slowly for rodents, with just one or two young per litter and a relatively long juvenile dependency, these control measures can have a noticeable impact if used intensively. In many parts of their range, Indian crested porcupines appear in folklore and rural stories. Their quills are sometimes used in decorative work or traditional medicine, while the animals themselves can be both respected and reviled. In agricultural areas, their digging aerates soil and helps disperse seeds, yet crop damage often overshadows their ecological benefits. In Pakistan and North India, conservationists have begun exploring non-lethal deterrents, such as barrier fencing or light-based repellents, aiming to balance coexistence with farmers. The Indian crested porcupine is listed as least concern by the IUCN, reflecting its wide distribution and generally stable populations. But local pressures, habitat loss, hunting for meat or quills, and conflict with farmers continue to affect populations in some regions. Despite these challenges, the species remains common and widespread across its range. The African crested porcupine, Hystrix cristata, is perhaps the best known of all porcupines, and certainly the most widespread across Africa. Its range extends from Morocco and throughout much of sub-Saharan Africa, and it has even been introduced to parts of Italy, where it now thrives as an established species. At a glance, it looks much like its Indian relative, stocky, dark-furred, and crowned with a mane of long, erectile quills that form its distinctive crest. When alarmed, these quills are raised, transforming the animal's outline into a bristling fortress. African crested porcupines prefer dry savannas, scrublands, and rocky hillsides, where they shelter in burrows or among rocks by day and emerge at night to forage. Like the Indian species, they are monogamous and maintain long-term pair bonds, often using communal burrows that may house parents and their offspring. Although their diet is similar, roots, tubers, fallen fruits, and bark, they are also known to dig up cultivated crops and are considered agricultural pests in some areas. In Italy, they have adapted well to farmland mosaics and open woodlands, showing a tolerance for humans that has helped their population expand. In the wild, African crested porcupines are surprisingly influential. Their burrows provide shelter for other animals, from mongooses to hares to reptiles seeking refuge from the heat. They are also occasional scavengers, gnawing on carrion bones for minerals. Their foraging paths create small clearings in dense vegetation, encouraging the growth of pioneer plants that attract grazing herbivores. In this way, even their nightly wanderings help shape the structure of their ecosystems. Across Africa and the Mediterranean, porcupine quills have long held cultural significance. In ancient Egypt, they were used as decorative ornaments and pen shafts, while in parts of sub-Saharan Africa, quills are still employed in traditional jewelry and headdresses. The animals themselves also appear in folklore, often symbolizing caution, patience, or hidden strength. Despite being hunted for meat and their striking quills, the African crested porcupine remains common and is listed as least concern by the IUCN. Its success lies in adaptability. It can survive in a wide range of habitats, from arid deserts to forest margins, and even in areas altered by humans. The Cape porcupine, Hystrix africaeaustralis, is the largest of all porcupines, and indeed the largest rodent native to Africa. Some individuals can exceed 25 kilograms in weight, with quills up to 35 centimeters long. Found mainly in southern and eastern Africa, it inhabits open savannas, grasslands, and rocky outcrops, often overlapping in range with the African crested porcupine, but preferring slightly cooler and more open habitats. Like its relatives, it is nocturnal and terrestrial, using burrows or natural shelters for protection. It feeds on a mix of roots, bulbs, and tubers, sometimes gnawing bones for calcium. In dry regions, this diet helps it survive long periods without free water. Cape porcupines play an important ecological role as diggers. Their burrowing activity turns over soil, creating microhabitats for smaller animals and helping to aerate the compacted ground. Their abandoned burrows later become valuable shelters for other animals. Warthogs, aardvarks, and reptiles have all been found using old porcupine tunnels. They also influence plant communities by selectively feeding on certain tubers, which may shape local vegetation over time. In these ways, Cape porcupines act as inadvertent ecosystem engineers. It's digging and feeding shaping the microhabitats of the grassland and savanna communities around it. Cape porcupines are known for their strong pair bonds and cooperative behavior. Mated pairs share burrows year-round and are often seen foraging together, their quills brushing softly as they move. They may defend their burrow entrances fiercely against jackals or leopards, charging backwards to drive intruders away. In some regions, trail cameras have even recorded them sharing tunnels with warthogs, a temporary truce of convenience during cold periods or droughts. In South African culture, the porcupine holds a mixture of practical and symbolic value. Quills have been used for centuries as adornments in traditional dress and in modern crafts, while the animal features in local proverbs and folklore. In some regions, porcupine meat is eaten, though the species remains abundant and widespread. Although occasionally persecuted by farmers for damaging crops, the Cape porcupine's broad range and adaptability have ensured its continued success. Like its relatives, it is classified as least concern. Crested porcupines may patrol the night with a faint rustle of quills, but their story bristles with resilience. Across Africa, the Middle East, and South Asia, these heavy-bodied rodents have perfected one of nature's most effective defenses, a living armor of quills evolved from the simplest of beginnings, a strand of hair. Each species of Hystrix has its own rhythm of life, from the arid hills of India to the savannas of Africa. They dig, forage, and raise their young beneath the earth, warning off danger with a rattle of quills and a flash of white spines. Together, they show how a single lineage can spread across continents and still remain unmistakably itself. For thousands of years, people have crossed paths with these animals, hunting them, telling stories about them, and crafting with their quills. But behind the folklore lies an ancient success story, one of quiet persistence, adaptability, and strength. I hope you enjoyed this journey into the world of crested porcupines. If this video sparked your curiosity, don't let it stop here. Share it, talk about it, and keep learning. There's still so much to discover about the world's rare and remarkable species. And the more we understand, the better our chances of protecting them. Thanks for watching.